I'm a primary school teacher, and
Yes.
I have a reception class. So when we hear children use this language in our class, obviously
I'm so depressed. You gloss over that as if it's the most normal thing. As that you're a primary school teacher and you hear children use language like this.
I hear much worse than that at the age of 4 and 5.
Sometimes I'm glad of my bubble.
Yeah, it's important for us to take it on and explore it with them.
Yes.
So, say, for example, dealing with the person who was offended, I would sit down initially with them and just explain that person's clearly feeling really hurt and really angry.
Yes.
And the only way they know how to deal with that when they get those feelings, and we talk about what it would feel like in your tummy or what it would feel like if there was something that was angry wanting to explode or something, and they say they just don't know how to tell everybody that they're angry, and this is their way of telling. And then you would go to the person that did it, and then go through. We call it Thrive at School. It's a particular way we kind of approach it, and that's all this is on a.
Except you've swerved that point I made about his status. I mean, he is. I appreciate there are an awful lot of parallels to be drawn between a petulant primary school child and Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is the President of the United States of America, and therefore everything he does, for good or for ill, and I'm sure one day he might do something good, is magnified. It's on a completely different scale and status from everything else. I mean, this empowers people. God, how depressing that it's already happening in primary schools. But how do you explain to a child that doing something that the President of the United States of America does in public in front of the whole world, if he does it, how can you explain to a 6-year-old that it's wrong?
Because you have to be honest, and just as adults accept that politicians are as corrupt as some of the most corrupt people in the world, you would tell children that the people that get elected are just normal people, just like you and me, and just like in your neighbourhood, in school, there are children that don't quite know how to speak properly, that don't know how to behave properly. These people...
Yes, but he's president. How can you say to them he doesn't know how to behave? I mean, his racism...
Because he doesn't.
Yes, but they don't... That's not going to work as an explanation, is it? Because they're going to go, well, hang on, sir. Hang on, sir. He's president of the United States of America. I want to be president of the United States of America, so I'm going to be just like him.
But because like you just said, there's no other way to deal with it than what is the truth. So I would turn their eyes to more successful presidents of the United States and say, well, look at Hitler. Look at, these are all dictators that have come in. You can't just say that just because of their status, they have...
No, but I think I would say that we should have risen to the bait of Hitler sooner. I just mean by that, people who aren't Nazis or Nazi sympathisers, which I admit it's not quite as big a gang as I used to think it was, Omar. But surely the argument is that people didn't rise enough to the bait of Hitler. Actually, it's a bit of a flaw in my theory. They did spend most of the sort of late 20s, early 30s pointing and laughing at him.
But the way that you get around it is by arguing, because it is a democracy. We can only work...
But if you're arguing, you've risen to the bait.
No. Because like you said, you can condemn something, and I believe, like I said before, argue rationally like you do.
Yeah, but I can't argue. I'm not having an argument about whether or not this is racist. It just is. So if we start having an argument, we've risen to the bait. I think that's what they mean. So look, this is just gross. It's just utterly racist. If it had a semblance of intellectual or moral consistency, then he'd have been arguing for himself to leave America when he was telling lies and getting his panties in a bunch about Barack Obama every day. So there is no argument here. He's a massive racist, hypocritical fraud and liar. If we have any form of debate, that opens the door to the possibility that there are two sides to this argument.
But, well, that's the only way you'll be able to get someone enough to reason, because bear in mind, if you're saying debate, it's inherent.
You can't reason people out of a position they haven't been reasoned into. That's kind of the point. There's nothing reasonable about racism.
I think that's why I try to refer to the example of my children, because it's prevalent in them. I know the thing that works categorically is reasoning with them, allowing them to understand that this is a value that they've inherited somehow, socially or through whatever. And
I love you.
Reasonable.
I love you, and I think the children that you teach are very lucky to have you, as a few people have pointed out on Twitter. But, and I hesitate to say this, what happens when the kid who you have successfully talked to goes home and their dad or their mum or their stepfather turns around and says, "You don't listen to him again. He's black."
Do you know what, mate? It happens, and that's happened this year. And the only thing you can do is, and that's the annoying thing, we become corporate parents in a sense, where when we get them children, I literally adore every single one of them, and I get excited to see them in the morning. And I know, though, it's not all the children, it's that small percentage that they'll go home and everything that you've worked really hard, and especially when you see the development across the week, but you know that Friday when they go home over the weekend, they're going to come back in on Monday so dysregulated, and it's like a reset button, and you just have to keep going at it and hope that over time, so looking into the future, that they realise that the school experience and the values that they're learning in school do them well. So
you just have to hope.
Their everyday practice.
The audacity of hope. The audacity of hope, Omar.
Yeah, indeed.
Just to reference a previous resident of the building Donald Trump now lives in, when, of course, he's not spending taxpayers' money staying in his country clubs and golf courses. Omar, mate, I mean it. Sometimes I take a call that I know will stay with me for a long time, and yours is absolutely one of them. Doesn't mean he's right. Didn't actually agree with everything that he said, but I really enjoyed listening.